Let's further discuss this now with Mohammed Shehada. He joins us live from the Danish capital, Copenhagen. He is the Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor, and he is originally from northern Gaza as well. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. So this Lancet report, it doesn't include the Palestinians who are unaccounted for, the ones who are currently buried under the rubble, ones who have died from hypothermia, malnutrition, the humanitarian catastrophe. Can we expect this number that they're reporting to actually be much, much higher?
Yeah, absolutely. If you take, for instance, indirect death, like I have a friend whose sister and mother were forced on a death march by the IDF. His sister died on the way from heat and starvation and didn't have any water, just passed out and died on the way. That's not counted as a casualty of the war in the official records of the health ministry. If you look at the number of people that are dying from starvation, from diseases, and from other reasons that are created deliberately by Israel in this genocide, the number is likely to even double. It bespeaks of a deliberate Israeli strategy to maximize the number of civilian casualties in Gaza as much as possible. So, for instance, Israel has been using an AI software called Where is Daddy? That's the literal name. The premise of it is, if you want to target a specific person, don't target them alone. Wait until they go home. As soon as they are home in a high-rise building surrounded by hundreds of people, bomb the building to kill the entire family and the neighbors and anyone that knew them. The whole building is gone. 100 people are dead in that one airstrike. That's the whole premise of Where's Daddy? There's also a huge number of unknown casualties that we don't know about, but we know that they exist. For example, Israeli soldiers themselves have given testimony to the Israeli website Plus 972, in which they said that they were crushing the bodies and living Palestinians with tanks, turning them into mush. And as soon as international delegations go into Gaza, they sort of collect all these bodies, mix them up with the rubble, and bury the evidence, just clear the roads that were previously littered with these bodies decomposing and being devoured by hungry cats and dogs. They bury them with the rubble. We've seen also evidence of Israeli soldiers at the Netzarim corridor that every time Gazans tried to return to the north, they would shoot them and bury them on the spot there. There's also a systematic Israeli policy of kidnapping bodies of Palestinians from Gaza to use them as, quote, bargaining chips. This is something that even Israel's Supreme Court okayed a few years ago and said it's okay for the Israeli government to use them as political leverage in any prisoner swap with Hamas or hostage deal with Hamas. So if you put all of this together, the actual casualty figure is much, much higher than what we know.
When reporting on the amount of people that have been killed in Gaza, Mohammed, the Western media outlets have often discredited the health ministry, undermining them just because of their ethnicity, just because they're Palestinian. What has the Lancet done now by releasing this report?
Well, basically, it's a very cornerstone of genocide is to constantly deny it, to cast doubt on the number of the casualties. We have seen that shamelessly by the most genocide denials there is, Joe Biden and Antony Blinken, consistently trying to sow doubt that the number of people that are being killed in Gaza is much less than the official number, or that the Hamas militant casualties in this genocide are higher than what we know. Well, basically, the Lancet report is a strong blow to all of those genocide deniers, whether it's mainstream media or if it's public officials in Israel, in the US, around the world. There's also the other dimension that you've seen recently, reports by genocide apologists, people that are pro-Israeli or Israeli themselves, that have been saying that the number of dead in Gaza is much, much less than what we know. And their only evidence is basically a statistical error of less than 1% in the total casualty of women and children in the database of the Ministry of Health. There's also the other dimension that you have a number of bodies in Gaza, people that were killed by Israel, that have simply evaporated. That's something that the United Nations told recently, and it was reported in Israel's main liberal newspaper, Haaretz. They said that Israeli airstrikes on the Mawasi area led to the evaporation of bodies. When Israel uses a 2,000-pound bomb, that bomb creates a fireball of around 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit, which can melt and evaporate bodies upon immediate impact. So it's absolutely insane and shameless to see that level of genocide denialism and genocide apology in the face of a mounting evidence that what the actual casualty or victims of Israel's genocide is much, much higher than what the Ministry of Health has been reporting.
And of course, if there's no ceasefire, the death toll will continue to rise. In fact, experts say that if a ceasefire is put into effect today, the death toll will still continue to rise due to the impact the humanitarian catastrophe is having on the population there. As a Palestinian from Gaza, do you have hope left at all that this will end eventually through pressure from the international community?
Absolutely not, to be honest. I had hope early on. I was more hopeful around the turn of last year than this one. In January 2024, I thought something will come around. The world is waking up. There's pressure. There are demonstrations. Biden might eventually tell Israel to back off.